What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Hogmolly Hustle Podcast. As always, I'd like to suggest that if you like anything that we happen to say, or you don't like anything, make sure you like and subscribe, or if nothing else, leave a comment below to tell us how smart or wrong we were. Well, Austin, it's good to see you and your beautiful face again. I like that you're not wearing a hat this time so everybody can see those luscious curls. Look at that. That is a handsome man right there. Okay, so we had a lot of stuff happen in week 2 that I'm really excited to get on with. It stinks that our last week's podcast got ruined due to unforeseen technical issues. But now, hopefully, not going to happen again. We're going to touch up a little bit on week 1, but not spend too much time. And we're going to go on to week 2 here. I'm going to start with a few of the games that I was going to recap on. First up, of course, a little bit biased, but the Lions-Packers game. I was really worried that after week 1, the showing they had, that if they came out and did that against the Lions, I was really going to start to worry. But I said last week, of course you guys don't know this because it got canceled out, but I said, I think it's going to be fine. Next week they're going to get straightened out. They didn't play any preseason, and it'll get straightened out. Nothing to worry about. But then during that game, I thought, I don't know, this Lions team's looking pretty good. TJ Hawkinson's playing really well, and Jared Goff's making really good throws. A little bit worried about that. The defense is still questionable, but the rust seems to be knocked off. And heading into next week, I think they'll get their real big challenge against the 49ers.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at that game, the first thing that jumps out to me is that the Lions are better than I thought that they were heading into the season. I didn't have a lot of confidence in Campbell to kind of right the ship there. But the Lions have definitely shown against the 49ers and Packers, which is just a brutally tough week 1 and 2 matchup for them, to get things rolling. They've shown that they have some talent, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm really, really pleased with how their offensive line looks in the first 2 weeks of the season. Thought it was going to be a lot worse, but, some young guys, Taylor Decker and Ragnow and some of those guys have really stepped up. And so, they came out swinging in Lambeau, and it was too little too late for a comeback, especially with that rain that was falling. I want to say also, let me read you a tweet that I just found concerning the broadcast. Did you watch the Peyton and Eli version or just the standard?
Watched the standard. What was it? Whatever's on YouTube TV.
Okay. If you get the chance, definitely check out the Peyton and Eli version on ESPN2. I watched it week 1 with Raiders and Ravens, and it was spectacular. This week it was great once again. They have special guests, everything from Patrick Willis and Pat McAfee to Brett Favre, Russell Wilson, just different guys that kind of zoom during the broadcast. It's really just like sitting on the couch with Peyton and Eli and letting them kind of dissect the game, and they bring up a bunch of funny stories. Like at one point, they were talking about how Brady played the Super Bowl in Indy, and Eli asked Peyton if he was scared to talk about certain plays around his locker, thinking that they might have bugged his locker. And Peyton was like, no, we always talked about it in the showers instead of, at my locker in case Tom had bugged my locker. But it's really successful, and it's really cool. I think it's an innovative experience to watch, the broadcast. Let me just read this right quick. Peyton and Eli Manning, the broadcast averaged 1.86 million viewers for their second Manning cast on ESPN2 last night. That's more than double the 800,000 viewers that they had in week 1. And so that's got to be something that ESPN's proud about. And I look forward to more broadcasts like that, more interactive, parts of that, because it's so good for fans to be able to experience that. And it's so knowledgeable just to watch them dissect the plays and the coverages and that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
that was what I enjoyed most about that
Yeah.
game.
Have you seen the on that before we move on here? But have you seen the Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks? I think Taylor. Shoot, I forgot her first name. On the Colin Cowherd show, Jason Taylor's sister. I just can't remember her first name. Anyway, they get on there and they go through and watch I think it was like Thursday night football. They would have like this live stream, and they're like just their floating heads there, and they're talking as they're going through the game. That's also pretty cool. They're talking about things scouting wise. I love Daniel Jeremiah. But yeah, by the way, this podcast is sponsored by the Manning Monday Night Football show. Just in case you didn't know, I think
free ads for ESPN.
Like they need it, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll move on to the next one. The Chiefs' defense might be a bit of a problem for them. Not terrible, but it's definitely not great. Of course, they went against a really good Ravens team, but the Ravens team has also lost some running backs, and they're definitely wounded, but they were able to put up a fantastic fight, and Lamar's able to get his first win against Patrick Mahomes in an epic way. That crazy jump pass. Anytime you get a jump pass involved with your game, it's going to be a crazy game. Hollywood Brown played really well. Overall, just a really impressive game.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing that stands out to me, watching that game, it felt like the Chiefs' defense was on the field the entire game. And looking back at time of possession, the Ravens had the ball for almost 36 minutes compared to 24 for the Chiefs' offense. So, being a defense for a team that has such a prolific offense, Mahomes can just chuck it 60 yards downfield to Tyreek Hill for a touchdown in a matter of 1 minute, and then your defense is back out on the field. Being someone that's played both sides of the ball, I hated whenever I was playing defensive line and our offense would score, and then it's like you instantly have to go back out there and just work, especially against a team that runs the ball like Baltimore. So I think that's part of the problem for Kansas City's defense, and I think it kind of has been for a couple years now, right? I think the next step for them is to get more depth there, a lot more young players coming in, so you can substitute in and out and give guys, proper rest in between possessions, because that's I don't think that the Kansas City offense is slowing down anytime soon, so the defense just has to adapt to that. And, Baltimore definitely controlled possession in that game, and I think that's why they ultimately came victorious.
And big boy, Jason Oweh, forcing the fumble there towards the end of that game to win the game. Big boy play and a big boy moment. Great play there. And my last one here, and you might disagree with this, I don't really know. Derek Carr is playing really, really well right now. And I hate when Derek Carr gets crapped on the way that he does. I think there's a video of me somewhere out there on the internet auditioning for some radio show where I stuck up for the Raiders. I said, they're going to be really good this year. Khalil Mack, this and that. And then that was the year that he had the MVP caliber season, and then he broke his leg. But I'm going to go on a limb and say that if he keeps playing like this, he's getting more and more comfortable throwing it downfield. Derek Carr is a dark horse candidate for MVP. We'll see what happens. I don't think anybody expects that. All the hate he gets, but it's a pretty likely possibility, I think. And then another one before we move on from that is Solomon Thomas had 2 sacks. Big boy Solomon Thomas, former 49er, has 2 sacks already in Las Vegas. He had 6 sacks in total with San Francisco. He had a lot of issues going on. It was really a sad story. Went over as a high draft pick. Ends up having some serious issues. I think his sister killed herself, something like that. And he dealt with some heavy psychological issues early on. and all the while being called a bust and people hating on him. I really, really hope that Solomon Thomas can get a second life here and really perform well for that Raiders team, because I think he deserves it. That's my 3 teams. You have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just say, I wasn't aware of that about Solomon Thomas, but I'm definitely in his corner after hearing that. I think it's great that the league is starting to really put a spotlight on mental health and trying to promote better practices for that. And then going back to Derek Carr, Caleb, if I were a betting man, I would be raking it out for Kyler Murray and Derek Carr to be MVP this year. Both of those guys are just really impressing me. Kyler, with some of his decision making, I feel like he can still improve in that regard. But man, his arm is just live. And when you talk about scramble ability, somebody that's 5'10", as mobile as he is, he's just tough to catch. If you're an edge rusher or a containing linebacker trying to keep him bottled up in the pocket, it's just not going to work. Kyler can sprint to the sideline and throw it across the field and deliver a dart. A former baseball player, just has all the arm talent in the world. And Derek Carr is a winner. That's a guy that I saw about a week ago. Keyshawn Johnson had put out his list of elite quarterbacks, and Derek Carr was in that discussion, in that list with guys like Brady and Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, the guys that people typically think of as elite because they've won a Super Bowl. And he was getting a lot of flack for it. And me personally, I think that Carr has always kind of been in that middle tier, not top 5, but also not bottom half of the league. And I think that this year he's really showing, with the weapons that he has, Ruggs and Waller and these different guys, that he can elevate his game to play on that level.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things here. I think with Kyler Murray, you talked about that, and I saw some tweets, some knuckleheads saying, they had to get all these receivers for him to make him do well. It's like, yeah, as if that's the quarterback's fault. Isn't that what you want every quarterback to get? Don't you want every quarterback to have all these different weapons to throw to? I don't know. I think that all that stuff's kind of stupid. But no.
Especially when those receivers are guys like DeAndre Hopkins and A.J. Green.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the ghost of A.J. Green. It's not like it's Cincinnati A.J. Green, but it's still a 6'5", 50-50 ball winning wide receiver. I mean, he's basically a power forward lined up at wideout.
And they hit on a rookie, Rondale Moore. I mean, he balled out 150 yards receiving.
For fantasy purposes, please do yourself a favor. Anybody that's listening that needs a wide receiver, go pick up Rondale Moore. Being in that offense with Cliff Kingsbury, they're going to sling it. They're going to be throwing it all over the place. Air raid, go pick him up. He's a speedster, great route runner, underrated route runner. They got Christian Kirk. I mean, they just have tons of weapons.
Yeah, and he's literally running Andy Isabella out of town. So it'll be interesting if he ends up being traded here before the trade deadline. I can almost guarantee he'll be either cut or traded at some point because he just hasn't worked out. And I think that would be an interesting player to add to an offense. And about the Derek Carr thing, did you hear the interview he had or the press conference he had when he threw that big touchdown in week 1 to the receiver? And they were asking him.
Oh, to Zay Jones.
And they're
former ECU Pirate, represent North Carolina.
And he said, how'd you know how'd you trust him to make that catch? And he said, look, Zay has been at every early practice. He's put in the extra effort. He hadn't dropped a pass in all those extra effort practices. I knew that if I had to go to him, he could make that catch. And that confidence in your teammate, like they can see that. They can feel that. And Derek Carr is nothing if not a leader. He stands by all of his guys, and I don't know. I really hope this is a really good year for him because I like Derek Carr a lot.
Going back to Zay Jones, I'll leave you with this quote: "Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard." One of my coaches used to say that, man. It hits home. I mean, I was never the biggest, fastest, strongest, anything like that. But like, if you're smart, if you can be football savvy and soak up knowledge, you can a lot of times beat people that are more talented than you.
Right. And I was also small and not very talented. I'm kind of like a T-Rex. I have the short arms, but I'm short all around, so it's a little bit different. Are there any games we forgot?
Seahawks Titans.
Oh, you're going to bring that
really
one up because
game.
of the 50 points Derrick Henry got you in fantasy.
Yeah, I really hate that we had technical difficulties last week with our week 1 recap, but I basically pleaded for Mike Vrabel to just do the right thing and just feed Derrick Henry in order to save my fantasy season. Because like many people, I panicked a little bit after week 1. And so Derrick Henry, the first 2 quarters of that game, not looking good for the Titans. Really, the first 6 quarters of the season for the Titans have been kind of just nothing of note, nothing that you want to look, go back and look at in tape and see anything good, to keep. But now the second half in that Seahawks game, Derrick Henry flipped a switch, and he just could not be brought down. I think that he had around 82 rushing yards. And so I think that I read that like 140 of those were after contact, which is just unfathomable.
Is that not something that it seems like he's the only person that does that? I mean, when he gets on, he's making big grown men look like children.
See, and that's the difference between Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey can make people miss, and in exchange, he can run through arm tackles and spin people out. But Derrick Henry basically says, "Hey, buddy, I'm going to take this football. I'm going to run it right through A-gap. I'm going to truck you and 3 of your buddies on the way to a 30-yard gain." It's as a defensive unit, you have to have 11 hats to the football. Otherwise, he's just going to run through piece by piece. You have to tackle him as a swarm. You cannot, as a defensive back, you cannot just go for his legs because he's just going to stiff arm you into the ground. Josh Norman. So yeah, big win for the Titans in overtime. Their season could look a lot different if they were 0-2 after week 2. So yeah, big win for the Titans, and Ryan Tannehill kind of redeemed himself in that second half.
Yeah. And have you seen Derrick Henry's workout videos? Dude's an alien.
His box jumps where he like guys like Derrick Henry, Luke Kuechly, JJ Watt, they box jump over 6 foot tall.
He has like these. And he has this jump squat workout.
Defies the laws
he has
of
like
physics.
This jump squat workout he does where he has the bar pushing down and diagonally, and he's just goose, goose, goose. I watch that and I try to work out, but I see that and I'm like, I'm nothing. It's like I'll never be that. It's really discouraging. I can't imagine tackling after 4 quarters.
Oh no, I would say, as a defender in the NFL, that has to be the game that you circle, and it's like,
crap.
Oh God, I'm gonna need extra ice bags. Like, I might have to sit out practice Monday and Tuesday the following week. And I will say this for anybody listening: if you haven't seen Derrick Henry's high school rushing stats, do yourself a favor, pause the podcast, go look at his senior
But don't
year.
close the podcast, please.
Yeah, come back to us. But he absolutely dominated high school football. He had games where he had like 380 rushing yards and multiple touchdowns, like averaging 10 yards per carry. He's just a beast.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move on here. You know, if we talk about Derrick Henry all night, which we could, I mean, that would end up being pretty boring for some people. Let's move on to some of the takeaways. We got about 4 takeaways here from this week. I'm going to start us off by talking about the Jets and the Patriots. Got a couple of rookie quarterbacks here. Most of the rookie quarterbacks are to okay. Mac Jones is playing all right. Lawrence and Wilson are throwing a lot of interceptions. Wilson throwing 4 interceptions this game. But, look, a rookie quarterback, any rookie quarterback against the New England Patriots defense is going to throw a lot of interceptions. It's just Bill Belichick's going to mess you up. That's just how it is. The Jets had a pretty good game last week against the Carolina Panthers, who we'll talk about in the next part. I'll let you take that. But while we're talking about the Jets here, they have some good things on defense. And bright side, Zach Wilson threw one of the hardest throws in the NFL. He threw like 62-mile-an-hour fastball on one of the throws. Might have been an interception, but still it was a really hard ball. I think Josh Allen probably has the record for that. I have to look that up. It's one of those advanced statistics that they just pop up there. But it's not all lost for the Jets. That's not a great team. They got some weird stuff happening with Denzel Mims, who's not finding the field. They got Braxton Berrios coming in over him, and Denzel Mims, a young 6'4" fast wide receiver. They keep saying that it's not quite time for it yet. He didn't play at all that game, so I'm not sure what's wrong with that, but we'll see what happens. You can speak up on what you think about that Jets Patriots, and then go ahead with the Panthers whenever you're ready.
My biggest takeaway from the Jets Patriots game is that I'm kind of scared that I might have been right about Zach Wilson, and that's that I never doubted his talent. You know, I didn't think that he was the next Mahomes, which is what a lot of people were saying when he was drafted. But I saw him as more of a better version of Jake Plummer. Arm talent was there, could scramble, good at jumping around in the pocket and not necessarily getting locked in on one specific receiver. And so when they drafted him out of BYU, I thought that he had promise, but I feared that the Jets would find a way to screw it up. The Jets are like their crosstown baseball organization, the New York Mets. They just find a way to screw up everything. It doesn't matter what it is. They always find a way to screw it up. So if you're in New York and listening to us, we appreciate your support. And, if you need to talk to one of us or go to therapy, then do what you got to do, because I think it might be a couple of years before New York has a team that you can be proud of.
Yeah, the 30-year-olds he's playing with in the NFL are different than the 30-year-olds he was playing with at BYU. That's most definite.
Yeah.
Let's hear about these Panthers. I know you're excited to talk about this.
Oh, for sure. Panthers, week 1 against the Jets. It's not really an exciting game. Obviously, it was the Darnold revenge game, but, it's not like Darnold brought the narrative. It was just another game, is what he said. So happy just to get that win. And I thought that our defense just looked fantastic all across the board. Pass rush was good. Linebackers did a good job tackling. Defensive backs were all over the place, tipping passes and just disrupting everything that the Jets were trying to do offensively. And after that game, I was thinking, that was fun. I have to reset expectations to understand that we're still kind of in that middle rebuilding phase, and we have the Saints coming to town, who just had stomped the Green Bay Packers in week 1. And so wasn't looking forward to it. The Saints, have 8 coaches that are unable to coach that game. Sean Payton's pulling interns and sending them up to the booth. And They're missing, I think it was 4 or 5 regular starters on that defense. But a win's a win. And in the NFL, you'll take it any way you can get it. And so proud of the Panthers for coming out. Brian Burns, Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, all these playmakers on defense just doing what they do best. Our defensive line, especially Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns on opposite ends, I kind of hinted at this in our season preview episode. They're just so disruptive. And really, you have so many different ways to get pressure to the quarterback there. It's really great to see the young pieces come together. J.C. Horn getting his first interception against the Saints and just picking apart Jameis Winston. I think that the Saints had like 150 total yards in that game, which is just embarrassing when you have Alvin Kamara and some of the other pieces of that offense. It's not like Jameis Winston is a rookie. He's a veteran, but he's a veteran that has a tendency to get into some bad habits.
He also has bionic eye.
And a bionic eye. Well, hopefully he could see the scoreboard with that bionic eye on his way back to New Orleans. I will say this about J.C. Horn. Let's play a little trivia, Caleb. Rookies with the lowest allowed passer rating, rookie cornerbacks. You've got Asante Samuel Jr. at 46.3. We've got J.C. Horn at 50.4. Who is the third best in that category? Can you take a guess? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Is your mic muted?
Hello?
There we go. I think you muted your mic.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. It just kind of cut off. I didn't really do anything. Well, that might be another technical issue because I'm pretty sure it has 2 recordings going now. So that might have recorded about halfway through and started over. So we'll see if I can salvage that. But let's go ahead and move on because I think that's doggone it.
Oh, quickly, the answer to that trivia, Diamador Lenore.
Huh.
You ever heard of him?
Yeah, the Oregon guy, right?
I guess. I have never heard of him, but I love the name.
Diamador Lenore. Yeah, he was a rookie last year, I think. All right. Let's see. Our fourth takeaway was the Titans, but you kind of ruined that by already mentioning them. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I guess make up for this technical issue. Gosh, I really hope that doesn't screw this up, man. I can't take another technical issue this early.
We'll see.
The universe is trying to shut us down, Austin. Goodness me. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our shout-outs, doggone it. So last week, which you guys didn't see, and I pray that you see this week's. Next week, we're going to have all right, we didn't have the last 2 weeks, but we swear we're going to keep this consistent. So I talked about Connor McGovern playing against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming in for Zach Martin, who had to sit out because of COVID. Coming in, playing a pretty good game. He wasn't locking people down, but it was impressive to come in on short notice and start in the NFL and fill in for a guy like Zach Martin. That's just pretty impressive. So shout out to you, big boy. And then also I'm a huge fan of Vita Vea for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Same team here. But there was one play in particular, I know you've seen it on Twitter by now, anybody that's watching this. Well, there's one play where he takes the center or the guard, one of the two, and drives him back into the quarterback, almost sacks Dak on his way there. I mean, it's an incredible play. He's super athletic. He played some defensive end, like way wide outside the tackles in that game too, and he's just really impressive to watch. But the ones I have for this week, we've talked a little bit about Penei Sewell in the preseason. We talked about him getting bodied by Kwity Paye, and we worried about some of his footwork. Is he going to make it, making that switch from right tackle to left tackle, which we talked about is not easy. But as this season has gone on, he's become a key piece in their run game. I mean, I believe one of the announcers said it on the plebeian broadcast that didn't have Eli and Peyton Manning on there, said that, look, they just buck up and they get behind Penei Sewell and they need to run. And did you see the Jamal Williams presser where he's talking about, man, y'all act like I left intentionally.
Yeah,
I love that.
He was like comparing it to
it's like an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, he's a clown.
I'm getting fed well. I love that. That was great.
It's hilarious.
But Penei Sewell, he's looking a lot better. He's hasn't given up a sack since like 2018, which given he sat a year out, but still not giving up a sack in a season is impressive. But not giving up a sack in multiple seasons even more impressive.
Especially considering, isn't he? I'm pretty sure he was one of the younger players drafted. I think he's like 20
I think
21, 20. Yeah,
21
so,
now.
I mean,
probably.
he was basically a teenager playing Pac-12 football, and I know we were on the Pac-12 is not the most powerful football conference, but still, playing against guys like UCLA and USC and Utah and not giving up a sack is just crazy.
Yeah. So it either says a lot about the Pac-12 caliber of player, or it's just really impressive. I think it's really impressive. So let's not throw off on the Pac-12. They do have the best edge rusher coming out this year, supposedly, so long as he stays healthy. And then my second player, for my defensive player for the second week here, is going to be Florida defensive tackle, Zachary Carter. He's wears number 6 at D tackle. He's about 285, so he's a little bit small. He's on the smaller end of D tackles. I think he'll end up being a solid 3 tech if he gets to the NFL and keeps playing the way he is. He came back for his final year, and that was probably going to be a good decision here. We'll have to see if he ends up being a first-round pick. I think he's probably one of those second, third-round pick kind of guys. He could be a force on the interior, and I really like the way he played. He played really well in this game against Alabama where they were getting blown out in the first quarter. And I was like, oh, well, I just turned this off. And then I came back after halftime. I was like, oh, whoa. Things are starting to turn around here. Like they might be Alabama. And Florida is now ranked number 11, and they have a game against Georgia October 30th. That's a big, big, big game at the end of October. That is a big game.
It's an underrated rivalry, too.
Yeah.
As fans of those two teams, they hate each other.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens there. Let's hear your shout-outs.
All right, so week 1, on the offensive side of the ball, my shout-out is to Chiefs center, a rookie, second-round pick out of Oklahoma, Creed Humphrey.
Yeah.
He made his NFL debut versus Cleveland, had 41 pass block attempts. I mean, you know that the Chiefs are going to be throwing the ball. And so 41 pass block attempts, 0 quarterback pressures, 0 sacks, and was instrumental in Kansas City making that comeback against Cleveland. If they don't make that comeback, Caleb, they're looking at 0-2 to start the season. So, Creed Humphrey played an important role there. On the defensive side of the ball in week 1, big shout out to Eagles defensive tackle, North Carolina native. He's from Salisbury, North Carolina, Javon Hargrave. Talk about someone that, as an interior offensive lineman, I would not like to go to war with on a Sunday afternoon. Guy that had 2 sacks versus the Falcons week 1, just a huge body, instant double team. and just a disruptive presence on that defensive line for Philadelphia. As far as week 2 goes, I'm going to give an offensive shout out to the LA Chargers offensive tackle Rashawn Slater. This is a guy that, to the first 2 weeks of his career, has 94 pass block attempts and 0 sacks allowed. And that's against Chase Young and Micah Parsons. Those are the guys that he's coming up against. So, the rivalry with Chase Young goes back to their days at Northwestern and Ohio State. It's great to see Slater doing so well for the Chargers because I feel like he's kind of a missing piece for them. I feel like shoring up that offensive line was the next step for them, going from a really talented team to all of a sudden being a playoff team. And we kind of talked about that in our season preview episode. Rashawn Slater is a guy that I call the magician because there are times where you watch his film and it looks like he's off balance and it looks like he's leaning back so far that he's about to get ran over, bull rushed. And somehow I don't know if his bottom half is just stronger than everyone else, but somehow he wins those blocks. And when it looks like he's about to get steamrolled, he just keeps his footing and creates a seal for the running back. And so defensively, I want to give a shout out to the Raiders defensive end, Max Crosby. This is a guy that has the highest PFF rated edge tape this year. Big reason why the Raiders are 2-0. Watching that Monday night game versus the Ravens, he was just a disruptive presence, going after Lamar and making him really uncomfortable when he was throwing the ball. And so Max Crosby, big shout out to him.
Yeah, I'm a big Max Crosby fan. And that game you talked about with Rashawn Slater, Northwestern against Chase Young, that was one of the big key games for him to really get on a lot of people's radar. They say, whoa, who is this guy? Now, anybody that had kept up with the top offensive lineman in college knew that this guy was a really solid tackle. But that game against Chase Young, after all the hype he had, that put him on the map. And being able to continue that into the pros. And Chase Young is a monster. We should make that clear.
Absolutely. No,
Chase Young is a monster.
I would be surprised if 5 years from now Chase Young is not a guy that we look at as a top 5 edge rusher in the league.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to take 5 years, man.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think
he's here to stay.
He's just impressive. But no, I like all those guys you mentioned. Creed Humphrey, a little touch on that. He also caused one of the safeties for the Browns to get thrown out, which was nice. He pushes him, and then Harrison falls back and steps on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Then a coach comes over, and he pushes Ronnie Harrison. Ronnie Harrison looks at him like, bro, what are you doing? And then he pushes him back. They eject Harrison. And today I found out that coach was also fined. I mean, I don't know if he's suspended for a game, but he was also fined for that, which I don't know what a coach fine looks like compared to a player fine. But that was an interesting situation. So good job, Creed. You started that.
Yeah, offensive linemen are always the instigators in situations like that.
I love it. I was a real instigator because everybody was bigger than me, so I had to get them mad at me. Okay, let's move on to our games to watch. I guess I'm just going to run through these, and if you have any to add on or if you have any comment on this, we'll just go with that. If I seem out of the element, I'm really upset about the technical difficulty. I'm really just trying to work my way through that, so just bear with me here. Chargers-Chiefs, I think that's going to be high scoring. This is a big game for both teams because the Chiefs have not looked as all-powerful as people were expecting them to be. Similar to the Bucs, they are very beatable. And the Chiefs, or the Chargers, have not lived up to a lot of the hype that was getting built up, maybe possibly from me, because I said Herbert was going to be an MVP candidate this year, and as of late, he's played okay. He's made some really impressive athletic plays, but overall, that team is not playing at the level that I expected them to be playing at this point. So a win against the Chiefs would be really big. and to solidify their hold on the AFC West, that'd be huge for the Chiefs. And then my second team, I know you'll have a comment on this, the Bucks and the Rams. This is a huge game for both of them. Matthew Stafford in Los Angeles looks great. I think it's going to be a fantastic year. He's going to put up some crazy numbers. It looks completely different. And Jared Goff is looking completely different in Detroit. So I think it's going to work out for both parties. The Bucks have looked beatable. Their secondary is questionable, especially their corners, or specifically their corners. And against Matt Stafford and those receivers, I think that could be a high-scoring game. I think the Rams defense is really going to step up, or really going to have to step up to beat the Bucks. And the last game is the Washington football team and the Bills. This is one of those games that Bills fans are going to expect Josh Allen to win. It's a tough defense. Some questions on offense with Heineke. I really hope Heineke can continue to play well because I want to see him get an actual shot. So that's going to be a really tough game. But if Washington can beat the Bills, that's a huge game, because if they can get any games ahead of the division, that's going to be a tight three-team race. I think the Eagles, Cowboys, and the football team are going to be the three teams that are vying for that title at the end of the season. So this is a huge game for both teams.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, concerning the NFC East, I feel like a football team is going to win the division. Dad joke. But Heineke is actually currently exploring an endorsement deal with Heineken. Fun nugget for our listeners. But yeah,
I've been caught a fun nugget from time to time.
I bet you have. The Bucks-Rams game is what I'm looking most forward to. Like you said, Stafford looks great in LA. I think that team, Jared Goff is not a bad quarterback by any means, but he's not Matthew Stafford. I mean, Stafford's a guy that's been top 10 in the league for a while now. If he wasn't in Detroit, then, other people, outside of the market would recognize his talent, for what he really is, rather than him being a sum of the parts that Detroit failed to put around him. I think that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that although Stafford had some good years with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones and some guys like that, I'm pretty sure that Cooper Kupp is going to be Matthew Stafford's favorite connection in the passing game since Megatron. I think that he's going to have a solid connection there. Fantasy owners, if you have Cooper Kupp, keep him. If you don't have Cooper Kupp, try to target him. He's going to get a lot of targets, a lot of receptions, and I mean, he's a red zone threat, just a great route runner. And so this is a potential NFC championship matchup. It has big implications on the playoff picture. And so is it being played at, I believe it's being played in LA. So yeah, big time atmosphere. And I mean, you can expect a loud stadium. You can expect Tom versus Stafford, and it's going to be, I would say, the biggest challenge for Tom so far this year, no doubt. As far as dissecting a defense, the Cowboys' defense definitely doesn't hold a candle in the wind to the Rams' talent that they have with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and the Falcons are one of the worst teams in the league. So, hopefully we get a good game, and I don't know. I like the Rams in that game. I think that the Bucks have looked vulnerable, like you said, both against Dallas and Atlanta. Atlanta stormed back Sunday and nearly beat the Bucks. I think it was either tied or maybe like a 3 or 2 point game in that third quarter. So, yeah, I like the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I like what you say about the playoffs here, because I think that could be a real possibility. Remember, the Packers played against the Rams last year. Jared Goff led Rams team, and they played pretty well. Just couldn't keep up with that team with Matthew Stafford. That's going to be a different situation. I think that Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback than Jared Goff. I think it's tough for anybody to say otherwise. But Jared Goff looks completely different in Detroit. I think it's just a different sort of feel. Not necessarily a better offense, but maybe it's a better offense for Jared Goff.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times guys have better fits for them. And so I think that with Goff, having a team like Detroit that doesn't expect as much as the Rams do, I mean, they're in a rebuilding stage themselves. So, Peyton and Eli were saying that when you're in a new system, it typically takes a year or two before you feel completely comfortable. And I think that by the end of the season, you're going to start to see Goff become more comfortable in that offense for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it. Again, if you have stuck with us this far through the technical issues or have a little hard cut there as we had some issues, thank you. Like and subscribe if you like what we're talking about and you want to hear more. Make sure you tickle our little bell icon on YouTube if that's where you're watching this, so you can stay up to date with all the videos that we're going to be dropping or failing to drop due to technical issues. Well, any final thoughts here?
Just a couple. Real quick, Texans quarterback Tyrod Taylor with his hamstring injury has officially been ruled out for Thursday's game against the Panthers. So rookie Davis Mills is going to start in his place. I would like to go ahead and have a funeral for Davis Mills because Brian Burns, Derek Brown, and that defense is coming for you, pal. I mean, hey, rookie, welcome to the NFL. I don't know how else you can, christen someone into the NFL other than getting that defensive line thrown at you. I'm expecting a big Panthers win. If not, I mean, I'll be proven wrong, but
I really hope.
We'll see next week how this goes. But
I'm going to clip that.
I'm going to say Panthers. It's on the road. I'll say Panthers 20. I'll say Panthers 27, Texans 16. That's what I'll go with. 27-16. The Dolphins head coach Brian Flores said quarterback Tua Tagovailoa will be day-to-day with his rib injury. That's something that, I mean, man, if you're a Miami fan, it's got to be tough. You've got this young quarterback that's shown some promise, and they've been in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. A lot of fans are saying, we need to trade for him now. Go get him this weekend. We don't really know if he can even play in the NFL right now as far as the investigation goes. So that's something to keep an eye on. Even though it's day-to-day, if he has broken ribs, it's hard to think that he's going to play anytime soon. I mean, if you get sacked again, that's not only from a football standpoint, but from a health standpoint, that's very dangerous. Yeah. So a 300-pound man landing on your ribs after you've broken them is not good.
No. 300-pound man on top of you in any situation is usually not good.
Oh, true.
But one thing I know is for certain is if he's not able to come back anytime soon, that team is screwed. I don't think that Brissett's going to do much for them going forward.
Yeah,
that was a rough showing.
I don't have a lot of faith in Brissett as a passer. And so when you have a one-dimensional offense, and it's not like their running backs are that great. So it could be a long season for the Dolphins if Tua is going to be out for a little while. And then my final thought, did you see the Ravens offensive lineman Bradley Bozeman, how he showed up to their game Sunday? He was wearing a Bobby Boucher jersey. And I think that's just the coolest thing ever. If I was in the NFL, I would absolutely do that. So big flex from the big man. Shout out Hogmolly. We love our Hogmollys here at the Hogmolly Hustle. So,
all right, I like that.
That's it for me.
All right, well, That's it for him. That's it for me. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week. Maybe. Probably. Hopefully.